Earlier today, I uploaded some early Starfield footage to my channel. It was about like 5 seconds of gameplay footage, but that 5 seconds showed you all you need to know, right? It was like some guy like gun butting some dinosaur in the head and having it like reel back as if it was like some agonizing force. Like it looked ridiculous, right? The gameplay looks washed out. The mechanics look terrible. Everything we know about the game, from like how the open world works to like the planetary stuff to the enemies to the combat, like it all looks lazy, right? It all looks terrible. And I've been saying this since the game was announced, right? That like nothing that we've heard about this game in any way, shape, or form looks good, looks interesting, looks like something I would want to play, or even would be functional, considering this is Bethesda we're talking about, and considering like the people who are like hyping this up seem to be guys who didn't grow up on the Skyrim thing, who didn't grow up like being told that like, oh, see that mountain, you can climb it, and then like realizing slowly that that wasn't true, that Skyrim was like a huge downgrade over like games we've gotten in the past, that it wasn't as good as like the Zelda games that came out around that time, that it wasn't like that it wasn't the masterpiece that it was built up as by the gaming media and the establishment. Like real gamers understood that like Skyrim had a ton of problems. Like the people who like love Skyrim were the kind of people who would like, oh man, I played a game. I played Skyrim for an hour, right? I'm such a nerd. Haha. Like that was like the Skyrim audience, right? People who don't know what they're talking about. Now, there's nothing wrong with like being inexperienced and being like impressed with like something you just pick up like on a whim or something and just being like, yeah, this is fun. I enjoy this for what it is. But like when you're going out and trying to say this is like the best game ever made, that this is like some masterpiece, that this is a big deal, this is a cultural milestone, that's when we have a problem, right? And it's why I had such an issue with Skyrim back when it first came out. And it going forward, it's why I've had such a problem with like The Last of Us, why I've had such a problem with Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man PS4, and now Starfield, right? It is the same exact thing where a bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about, who have no idea about Bethesda's issues as a studio, who have no idea what a typical release from them looks like, who have no idea that like every single time that Todd Howard or Pete Hines make a statement about the game, about how it functions, about what you can do in the game, about how much content you're gonna have, about like what the gameplay loop is like every time these guys make a statement, it is like they're channeling the spirit of like Sean Murray. It is like they are completely making everything up to try and act as if this game is better than it actually is, because that is exactly what they're doing, right? They are doing everything in their power to mislead you into thinking the game is going to be way more spectacular than it actually is, because when you get right down to it, Bethesda has absolutely nothing other than like the illusion that these are big open-ended, like endlessly replayable RPGs, because when you get right down to it, they aren't. When you get right down to it, like Bethesda just cannot, cannot create an interesting game to save their lives. And that has been demonstrated time and time again over the past several years. Oblivion was underwhelming. Fallout 3 was underwhelming. Skyrim was underwhelming. Fallout 4 is one of the worst games they've ever put out. And Fallout 76 is a game that like literally nobody cared about. A game that everyone hated. And now going into uh going into 2020, like going into like Starfield, like we're seeing people like seriously act as if this is like some major cultural milestone, right? That this is some big deal, that this is some like monumental achievement in gaming, that Starfield is going to be like not only the game of the year but one of the best games ever made, right? This is the thing that the fanboys are getting hyped about. Like next gen starts now, with the release of Starfield, and it's just not going to happen. Like the game has no momentum behind it. It has no content. Like fanboy people are not going to go out, buy Starfield, and then like just get ecstatic over it like they did with previous games, because we've we've gone over this song and dance for the past 10 years, right? We've seen other games like this come out. We've seen Mass Effect, we've seen like Anthem, we've seen like games like that fail. And with the way things are looking now, like it might be possible that we might see Starfield not do as well as it probably should, considering the pedigree, considering the hype, considering like the way the media is covering this. Like right now, it feels like the only people hyping this up are really terrible YouTube commentary channels that hate Nintendo and hate Hardman Smith, like who just like want to hype up Starfield just just because it is a it is the only AAA game that can like feasibly outdo Tears of the Kingdom this year as like the best game released this year. That's the only reason why. It's not because the game looks good. It's not because it looks interesting. It's not because like, oh, I want to play this. It's because they don't want Nintendo to win. That's what it comes down to, really. And I have to wonder if this may be a blatant enough example of this kind of thinking that people may actually start realizing that it is true. Like this kind of thinking might become it might be understood among the community that this kind of thing is becoming mainstream. I have to wonder if that is indeed the case.